Welcome back. 6 minutes past the hour. It's Thom Hartmann here with you, occupying the media 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. And very pleased to have on the line with us Dr. Jim Pew. He is the co-founder of the Universal Income Project. He's a tech entrepreneur with a PhD in distributed robotics. The website is universalincome.org. You can tweet him at Dr. Pugh. That's Dr_PUGH. And Dr. Pew, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. So, I spent the last hour talking about tribe, sense of community, and how the libertarian ideal is the exact opposite of that. And I would argue that the founding of this country for we the people is that. And it seems to me that ending poverty, Richard Nixon actually considered this. He was talked out of it by some bad science and crazy billionaires, or multimillionaires. But that to say that everyone in our society, that no one in our society should live below the poverty line, period, is the ultimate statement of we're all in this together. Tell us about universal basic income.
Yeah, well, universal basic income is an idea that would just provide people with money that was actually enough to bring them above that poverty line. And it's been picking up a lot of the steam in recent years. There's actually a vote happening just this coming weekend in Switzerland, where they're considering providing basic income to every resident of the country. But the idea is that we have enough wealth now that we really can end poverty, and that with the way the country is going, with how much tech is disrupting the way that we work and the way that we live, that it's really time that we provide this unconditional floor and make sure that people do have enough to meet their basic needs.
Yeah, I remember back in the 60s, as I recall, I've got the magazine around here someplace. I think it was 1966 or 67. Time magazine did this piece, or maybe it was Life magazine, about, this was when the Jetsons were a popular cartoon, and I forget Mr. Jetson's first name, but he would go to work, and his job was to sit in his chair and every 5 minutes or so reach forward and push a button. Right. And but there was just like so much leisure time. And this article pointed out that with the increases in productivity that we'd seen through the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s as a result of industrialization, that by the year 2000, if productivity continued to rise at the same rate, the average income of every American, assuming every American was employed, would be over $100,000. And in fact, it would be if we had continued to distribute income as we had, as productivity has increased. But A, we haven't. The very, very wealthy have figured out how to skim it off the top and destroy the middle class. We call this Reaganomics. But B, a lot of these jobs have vanished as a result of mechanization. So is this kind of like the next logical step in the evolution of our society? Is this and is this a better way to eliminate poverty than 112 different anti-poverty programs scattered among the 50 states and the federal government, and simply say, we're going to do away with most of these programs because they're just like filling in the chinks between the bricks, and instead we're going to say, okay, here you go, here's $15,000 a year, good luck.
That's definitely a big part of the appeal of the program, is its simplicity, rather than trying to come at, as you say, 100 different angles here and figure out, well, we need to patch something here, something there. Just do something that guarantees stability for everyone. And particularly as we move forward, that something that's just picking up its pace is how technology is changing the way that jobs look. And so for us to be able to keep up with that and try to be jumping about, thinking about, okay, this is a new program we need, just saying like, we're going to give that base. And yeah, then you're in a situation where on top of that, you give people the ability to retrain, to pursue other types of work. If they want to do caregiving, if they want to be working with their community, they can do that. If they want to be doing some part-time work in the gig economy, that can supplement their income. But just saying, here's what we're guaranteeing, and like, about that, you can figure out what the right solution is for you.
Now, isn't the downside of this, and I mean that almost sarcastically, isn't the downside of this that in order for it to work, people like the Koch brothers and and General Electric and ExxonMobil are going to have to start paying their taxes?
There's no doubt this would be a very expensive program to implement. But something that's particularly interesting about basic income is that it's actually something that makes a lot of sense for the business community to support. Because if you don't have a decent middle class that has money to spend on things, retail, tourism, all sorts of sectors are going to start to really suffer. And so there's actually a pretty strong argument for a lot of folks who represent the traditional right to come around and support something like this. So it's still very early on. Awareness around basic income is still relatively low, but it seems like there's a potential that this could actually have a lot of cross-partisan appeal.
Now, when Richard Nixon was considering this, and he was actually going to propose a program very much like this, and he said, I want to make sure that this doesn't cause people to get lazy. I want to be sure that this doesn't damage the economy. The phony science that he got, which went back to the 1600s, I guess, suggested, or it was this old story, suggested that people just become lazy if you give them a basic income. And I know that's the prevailing notion on the Republican side. I mean, they say that just about aid to families with dependent children. They say that about people who are disabled, but does the science bear this out? What happens when people have a guaranteed minimum income so that they don't actually need to work?
So I would say there's still a lot more experimentation and testing that ought to be done here. But we do have a couple examples to look to. There was actually a town in Canada that was provided all the residents with a basic income for 4 years in the 70s. And they saw that there was a slight decrease in how many people were choosing to stay in the workforce, but it was relatively small. It was around 10, just over 10%. And if you look closely, that decrease was entirely explained by people either staying in school longer or young women staying home with their children.
Both of which we would consider to be social goods.
Exactly. That if you think about what the net effect is here, there's plenty of work that isn't traditionally counted in the labor force as people define it. That's actually really valuable and important. And if we can be encouraging some more folks to be doing that, that's a great thing.
We're talking with Dr. Jim Pew. The website is universalincome.org. And where do we go from here, Jim? We've got about a minute and a half or so. What can people do to promote this?
Yeah, so what we believe is that right now the key thing to do is just raising awareness about this idea. Only about a quarter of Americans have even heard of it. So my organization is working to do just that. We're using creative campaigning tactics, organizing what we're calling create-a-thons, where we encourage people to come together and collaborate on projects that help to raise awareness and support. We actually have one of the projects that we helped start, My Basic Income, is having an event just this evening where they're raffling off a crowd-funded 1 year of basic income to someone chosen at random. And then they're going to follow their story, see what happens with that. But yeah, just trying to get the word out. So if folks are interested, check out universalincome.org. We're looking for more supporters all over the place to help do that.
Yeah. The MacArthur grants, it would be interesting to look at what happened to the folks who got. I mean, they're not, it's not like hitting the lottery. I mean, I think it's $250,000 you get, but it's enough to live on for a few years, and for quite a few years, depending on the standard of living that you have. And people have just done amazing things with those. I know at least 2 people who have written some amazing books as a result of getting a MacArthur grant. So anyhow, Dr. Jim Pew, he's the co-founder of the Universal Income Project, the website universalincome.org. Keep up the great work, Jim.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks for being with us. We'll be back. It's 15 minutes before past the hour.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.